Hi, welcome to the Motion Picture Notion. I'm your host, Gabriel Burton. So, this is my follow-up to the last video. I want to really kind of dive in on a lot of the stuff that I liked and didn't like about the new Watchmen. Now, to be clear, it wasn't all bad. Again, and as I said in the last video, it started off very strong. Silk Spectre is now working with the police, who have once again outlawed masks. Except for the police force themselves, they are wearing masks, but that's really kind of being pushed by this group of white supremacists called the 7th Cavalry, who dress up in Rorschach masks and, as I said in the last video, follow his journal, and they have this whole plot that doesn't unfold until the very end. Adrian Veidt Ozymandias is actually stuck on the moon of Jupiter, Europa, where Dr. Manhattan put him to be in this, kind of paradise that he's created, but it's really a prison to Ozymandias. I would just like to say right off the bat that Jeremy Irons knocks it out of the park. Ozymandias is fantastic in this show. It was brilliant. It was a very inspired choice for the casting there. Now, this is a sequel to the graphic novel, which makes it all the more frustrating, but if you refer to the graphic novel instead of the movie, it's not a blast that Dr. Manhattan creates or that people think Dr. Manhattan creates. It's actually a giant squid monster from another dimension that murders half of the populace of New York City, that then makes the Russians and the Americans and everybody kind of come together against a greater kind of evil. So that happens. And, the character Looking Glass that I had mentioned earlier, he's got this cool, little pit thing where he does, interviews with people to find out if they're white supremacists or not. And there's all these things that blip up on the screen, and it's supposed to, cause confusion or whatever, and he's very good at getting the answers out of them. He's not nearly as violent as Rorschach. He does seem to have more of a moral code and is working with the police, so he's sort of a sanctioned superhero. His origin story, you come to find out, he was in New York. He was actually in a Bible school, and he was supposed to be handing out pamphlets to people. And this chick from, the dudes with those weird Hare Krishna ponytail things from the graphic novel, this chick from their gang, dupes him into, coming into a fun house with, all glass mirrors and stuff. And she gets ready to basically seduce him, and he's about to go for it even though he thinks it's a sin or whatever. And then essentially when she's got him naked, she just takes his clothes, takes his wallet, and then ditches him and goes later. And he's sort of no, he's oh, idiot. And then the blast happens, and he's still naked, and he walks out into the street, and just 75% of everybody on the street is dead. And it's just interesting, and the whole house of mirrors and his mirror mask is really cool. And he works directly alongside Silk Spectre. Night Owl is in jail because he refused to put away his mask and work with the police department. The police now use the design that he had for Archie to, go into war situations. And it starts out really interesting with kind of a role reversal of race, where it's there's a lot more black people in the police department, and it has to do with a lot more poor white people. There's a scene where a trailer park gets raided, and they have a big statue of Richard Nixon there that the police are threatening to pull down. And even the liberal kind of way that this particular universe works, where police have a lock on their gun and they have to call in to activate it, and it shows how flawed of a system that is. It really kind of gives you an invert on our current reality, and it's kind of almost a way for both sides of the political spectrum to kind of look at race relations and sort of kind of understand where the other one is coming from. At least that's how it starts. So we get to episode 5, which is the origins of Looking Glass, which was honestly probably the best episode of the entire season. And then after the end of that episode, he literally just fucks off for the rest of the show until the very last episode, where he does virtually nothing. So I don't know what the purpose of his character was. A really cool character, really cool origin story, very original, different from Rorschach, even though he looks kind of similar. And they just Boba Fetted his ass. They didn't do anything with him. He just was there to look cool, I guess. But then it's in episode 6, they try to say that Hooded Justice was a black guy, hence the noose around his neck, that he was a black cop who was trying to infiltrate like the KKK, actually they were like a group, an offshoot of the KKK. It was called like Cyclops or something like that, and they're this white supremacy group that eventually, I think, wind up becoming, or at least the 7th Cavalry with the Rorschach masks, they're like descendants of this group, and he's trying to report it to the police, but the police are all racist, and they beat the shit out of him when he makes trouble for them, so he becomes Hooded Justice, and he puts like white makeup around his eyes to disguise the fact that he's black. I mean, you're retconning a character that people really like for political motivations, but whatever, fine, so they did that. So you think they're done with the politics? Nope. He's a gay black man. Oh, and he's gay with Captain Metropolis. Oh, look at that. And they're doing it because it's HBO and they gotta put the gay sex in there. So essentially he joins this league of superheroes. He's the one who started it all. And he tries to tell Captain Metropolis about like this white supremacy group, and he's like, hey, you gotta help me like take them down and stuff. And Captain Metropolis is essentially racist like everybody else, and he's like, yeah, no, we don't do that. It's not important enough of an issue. So they turned Captain Metropolis into a racist scumbag. They retconned a bunch of stuff just to put in all this like PC garbage, and it's just kind of like, dude, if you want to make the new characters like that, saying like, okay, now it's 2019 or whatever, 2020, fine, but it's like, leave the classics alone. Why do you have to like screw with beloved things? Like, get your own material. If that's the shit that you're trying to push, get your own material. So that was bothersome. The episode after that is just outright, to me, outright boring. Then episode 8, Dr. Manhattan comes back. They screwed his character up. Now, to be fair, the actor that played him, given the script, played him about as well as he could have. But Dr. Manhattan comes back to Earth because he falls in love with a woman. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, no. You're going to find out in the last episode that there was a reason for this, that he had to manipulate her or something because of some bigger cause. No. He came to Earth and he fell in love with her, and he gets caught. And it's just like, if you read the graphic novel, the reason why he leaves Earth, the reason why he says he's going to start life somewhere else, is because he's done with humanity. He doesn't relate to them anymore. He sees past, present, and future and like lives them simultaneously. He has the perception of like God. So how is he gonna... I mean, there was this one cool scene where, because Dr. Manhattan is living past, present, and future, this lady asks a question of her grandfather, like way back when, and basically through Dr. Manhattan, they're communicating like through a generation with one another. And then it turns out that because of something that she asked him, she may very well have set in motion like everything, which is a really cool concept. But again, Dr. Manhattan's motivations are just a slap in the face to everything that happened in the graphic novel. Then, at the end, because the end game for this 7th, whatever the hell, cavalry bullshit, Rorschach mask people, is that they want this super conservative senator to absorb Dr. Manhattan's power so that he can, turn the Earth into what the white supremacists want it to be. So anyways, it turns out that you need like a filter to do this, and they basically, so this guy gets turned into freaking pudding, and this woman who is half Vietnamese, who is also, unbeknownst to Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, his daughter, she basically has become a trillionaire, and she's designed a machine that can actually like obliterate Dr. Manhattan, store his like nuclear energy, and then safely transfer it to someone else. And she's had the plan the whole time to have the power transferred to her. So she's standing in this goddamn machine, and Adrian Veidt basically saves the world again by what he's been doing the whole show is he'll have like random rainstorms of little tiny squids, like they'll just fall out of the sky at random different places, and it keeps people afraid that like another portal could open up at any time and another squid monster could come through. It's how he's been able to maintain peace throughout the generation. So basically what he does is he freezes a bunch of squids and then has them rain down on that exact spot. So they're coming down in the air like bullets, like they'll just go through anything. So this chick is standing in the machine getting ready to receive Dr. Manhattan's powers, who's already been vaporized. So Dr. Manhattan's dead. And she's standing there, and then all of a sudden, she holds up her hand, and there's like a huge circular hole in it. A squid just went right through her. And then she just like looks up and she sees all the squids falling on top of this machine that soaked up Dr. Manhattan's energy, and it collapses right on her. Now I'm thinking for a second that they're really gonna go for the nuts and they're just gonna have a nuclear explosion, kill everyone. Nope, nope, nope. Machine just falls, crushes her. No nuclear explosion. All that nuclear energy that got sucked up from Dr. Manhattan, just, I don't know. It just went away, I guess. Like, who thought of that? Who really thought of that? And then there's a stupid thing at the end, and this is what some people will say. Oh, well, it was in the egg. Oh, well, egg. Basically, earlier in the show, he's saying to this woman that he falls in love with that he could, in theory, transfer his nuclear energy into an organic item that if she were to consume it, she would have his power. So she finds this solitary egg sitting in the milk carton at the end of the show, and this is where Dr. Manhattan's powers went, or you're meant to assume. And she eats it, and you're meant to assume that after that she can walk on water, but the second her foot touches the water, it cuts to black. So it's kind of left a little bit open-ended. But here's my thing. If he was able to transfer all of his nuclear power to this little egg, which in and of itself is very stupid, how was he captured? How was he contained in this thing? What energy was sucked up into that machine if it was in this egg the entire time? It literally makes no sense. The show shoots itself in its own foot. It's extremely preachy and self-righteous and stupid, and frankly it's an insult to anybody who's a fan of the graphic novel. I'm really sick of just like everything getting unnecessarily politicized at the expense of a good story. That's what really bothers me. There are good positive ways that you can politicize things, but this is just schlock. Again, I would recommend that if you are going to watch it, wait until it's extremely discounted, or if you can somehow rent it somewhere, do that, because it's really not, it's not worth your time or your money. You won't get that 9 hours of your life back. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, and that's all she wrote.